Hello and welcome back to the Week 6 NFL DFS Slate Breakdown for the main slate. Once again, we got 10 games on DraftKings, 11 on FanDuel, and we're going to be going through it all on both sites. Let's make some money. Last week was a profitable week. I did take down the early only contest on FanDuel for $20K. And let's try and build on that and get some bigger takedowns now. Before we get into it, please come join us at LineStar. It is only $39.99 per month, and it gets you access to everything we do. All the props, all the DFS, all the tools. You get it all. One low price for every sport we cover. Now, please also like, comment, and subscribe to the videos. It helps us a ton. Now, as always, we got a ton to get through here, a lot to talk about, so let's dive into the fun. So, little overview quickly, we got the 10 games. There are 2 games that are probably going to get a lot of attention, at least in one-offs or in stacks, and that is the Commanders versus Ravens, Lions versus Cowboys, and then we have a couple other games that are going to get a lot of attention. That is the Packers and Cardinals and Falcons versus Panthers. Outside of those games, everything else is 43 or lower. And then our fastest games of the week are Detroit and Dallas, Arizona and Green Bay, Carolina and Atlanta, and then Cleveland and Philly. Now, Philly is an interesting one here because it is a minus 9.5 to Philly. They're going to score some points, it looks like, and there is definitely the chance of explosive plays because of that Cleveland defense likes to take chances. They play a lot of man. A.J. Brown crushes man, and then Saquon Barkley is just so explosive and going against a defense that is allowing some explosive plays. It's interesting there as well. Now, we're going to dig into it all, but just wanted to cover that first, as we generally do. Now, starting with quarterback, highest owned quarterback on DraftKings, we got Jordan Love, 15% owned versus Arizona. It is one of the faster paces games of the week. He has had one blow-up game this year. Everything else you don't really need. And then if you go to last year, it's kind of more of that. Now, I don't mind Jordan Love this week. I just struggle to believe that he is going to put a must-have kind of score out there. My issue here is that Arizona isn't really a team that has many big explosive plays. So I don't think they're going to catch the Packers off guard too much. Now, the Packers are great and they can have some explosive plays. And I do like having Packers. I'm not all in on Love. I definitely do like this game, and I'm going to figure out how to get guys from this game. But I think Love is going a little over-owned. I'm going to have a little bit of him, but I'm not going overboard with him. Next, we got Lamar Jackson. Lamar just went absolutely nuts last week. And, going under 25 this year has been rare. I think he's in a great spot. The Commanders' defense is weak. The only worry I have with Lamar is, what if the Ravens just absolutely dominate Washington? Now, Washington hasn't really got dominated this year. So, we'll see how this plays out. But if the Commanders just get wiped and Ravens just crush them, that is the only way I really see Lamar failing in this spot. And in that kind of scenario, Lamar could still do okay. But I would say that scenario most likely is that Derrick Henry has a couple touchdowns, or Justice Hill does, something like that, where maybe Lamar didn't get it done, on his own. But regardless, I do like Lamar. This is one of the games that I definitely am going to be paying attention to, and I'm fine with him being a little higher owned. Justin Fields, I can't do it. My reason being is Justin Fields so far this year has only shown us a ceiling game when the Steelers have been pushed. They haven't really been pushed outside of that one Colts game, and I don't think the Raiders, minus Devontae Adams with Aiden O'Connell, Jacoby Meyer is questionable. Jameer White is questionable. I just don't think this Raiders team is going to push the Steelers. So I'm kind of out on Fields for that. Next, we got Spencer Rattler. Look, he's 4K versus a pass funnel defense. So you got to go some consideration here. And I mean, we have his projection at 14.8. I think that is a pretty fair projection, maybe a bit high, but I could totally see him going for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, or, something in that manner. I don't mind going there. He's 4K. There is some other value we can go to also. I like him. I don't absolutely love him. And I think the chances of him putting up a score where it's like you had to have it, where he's going like 25 or something, is super slim in his first start versus Todd Bowles' defense, who has a great track record versus rookie QBs or QBs making, their first start. So not super high on Rattler, but at 4K on DraftKings, I think you definitely should probably have a little bit just in case. Now, let's get into my pivot plays. Jaden Daniels, I think he's in a great spot. The thing that I think is so interesting about this play is he has topped 30 attempts once. He has had 30. That is his max. Now, if the Ravens get out to a lead quick and he is asked to sling it around a little bit more, I think there's a huge ceiling with Jaden Daniels. The other thing is the Baltimore pass D hasn't been that great, and it's really been giving it up to wide receivers. Been giving up some explosive plays too. So I think Jaden Daniels is interesting, and the most interesting way for me to play him is in a game stack, say Derrick Henry on the other side, or somebody, Zay Flowers or somebody, has already got it done in this game, and then Jaden Daniels has to catch up and is throwing extra. Very interested in him and in this game environment. Next, we got Dak Prescott. It's versus the Lions. The Lions are going to put up points. There is a very high likelihood that they get out to a quick lead. Dallas hasn't looked good so far this year. And, while they're still 3-2, it hasn't been the prettiest thing. Dak is way better at home. He's way better in domes. Detroit's secondary isn't great. They forced people to pass a lot. Cowboys have really, outside of last week, had no run game. So I think Dak is very interesting, and how he gets there is CeeDee Lamb going off. So I think if I'm playing Dak, I'm definitely playing CeeDee, and then maybe one of Rico, Ferguson, or Tolbert. I think doing a game stack in this scenario is another one where you can absolutely attack with Dak. Next, we got Jared Goff. I'm higher on the running backs for the Lions. I think most likely they get up to a lead, and the Cowboys, how their defensive line is with all the injuries and linebacking core for that. I just think most likely that the Lions are going to be able to run all over Dallas and not, really force Jared Goff to pass. What we've seen of Jared Goff is very, very few attempts. He had this one game of 55 attempts where he was pretty terrible. He threw for 307 yards, but had 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. But outside of that, 28 attempts, 23 attempts, 18 attempts. For Jared Goff to really go nuts, it's going to have to be a flip script where Dallas gets it going quick, and then Jared Goff is asked to throw a little bit more than we've seen. Is it likely? No. Can it happen? Yes. I will have a little bit of Goff, but I think I like CeeDee better. Dak better. And then I want to throw out a cheap quarterback due to the fact that Spencer Rattler is getting so much attention. Andy Dalton, he had, a week where he threw out 28, and then he had 17. It was real bad last week, but that was versus a good defense. He's getting, less than average defense now with the Falcons again. He could be asked to really throw the ball if the Falcons get up to an early lead or start kind of stomping on the Panthers. So slight interest here, and I think he's going overlooked a little bit. Don't really love it, but just trying to show a low-owned pivot. Now, on to FanDuel. We talked about everybody, but then there's Joe Burrow and Daniel Jones. I don't really love either quarterback. I think Joe Burrow, to really have those huge games, needs to be pushed, and the Giants aren't pushing him. So I'm kind of out on both quarterbacks. There is the rushing upside of Daniel Jones, but I just can't really do it. I'm not a big fan of this game, even though it is a 47 total. So it is a higher game total. I just see there's a lot of ways to fail and a lot of ways for this game to go under than over. And then on to the quarterback matchups. None of the guys except for, Spencer Rattler's there. Jaden Daniels is there, and I think that is an interesting one. It's just that Ravens secondary is not that good, and teams have had to throw versus the Ravens. So I think Jaden is a very interesting spot. Now, getting over to the running back spot, our highest owned is Tony Pollard, 30% owned, versus Indy, who they haven't been great. Now, I like Tony Pollard. I like his price point. He's in a great spot. I'm fine to have some of him. The one thing I have to say is, what are the chances that he puts up a you have to have it type of week? I would say it's pretty slim. It's not only his backfield, it's him and Tajay Spears. And he had 24 touches last week. Spears, I think, had like 16. So it's like a 60-40 split, touches-wise, something like that now. And while I like the spot for Pollard, and I definitely am going to have a little bit, I think 30% owned is a bit high on him. Next, we got Saquon Barkley. Barkley is one of the true workhorse backs still in the league. They're 9.5-point favorites. You have Lane Thomas back, Johnson back, and A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. I think this Eagles offense is going to start rolling again. I like Barkley in this spot. I think it plays a little bit better for the passing game, but if they get up by a little bit, he's going to have a huge workload, and he's involved in the passing game a little bit. 2 targets, 5, 4, so he can get it done through both, and definitely fine with some Barkley at that ownership. Jamar Gibbs, and I want to throw David Montgomery in there too. They both deserve to be similar prices. Jamar Gibbs is a little more explosive, but David Montgomery is just a total beast. I think both of them are in very, very good spots this week, and I don't mind having either one of them. Jamar Gibbs hasn't shown us that blow-up week yet, but he's been very consistent, 17, 20, right in there. I think this game script sets up for him very well. But then there is David Montgomery, who's cheaper and, has just as big of a ceiling because touchdowns come his way a little bit easier. He has scored in every single game this year. And if they get to a big lead, then what happens is David Montgomery just gets a ton of carries. 23 versus Arizona, and he got it done. And that's the type of game you really want. Or versus the Rams, where he had 17 and just missed that 100-yard bonus from really going nuts there. So I think both those guys are extremely interesting. And then you got Derrick Henry. Commanders' rush D is terrible. Henry has been a beast all season long. He has had a touchdown in every single game. So that is 6, 7 touchdowns in 5 games, and I don't think that streak is going to end today. The one thing, though, is you need him to get the 100-yard bonus. You need him to get 2 touchdowns to have a score where you really need him. He just doesn't do enough in the passing game to warrant playing him unless he gets to 100 and at least 1 touchdown. But I like Derrick Henry. I'm definitely going to have some of him, especially in games where I don't have Lamar. So I like him. Josh Jacobs, another one versus Arizona. They've been giving it up on the ground. Jacobs has a fine workload. He's 16 to 20 touches every week. And it's just a matter of time till he has a big game. And this is a great spot, so I don't mind going there whatsoever. James Conner, I'm fine to go there. I don't love it. He does have a huge workload. He is their guy. So I'm going to have a little bit of him, but I'm not going overboard. Alvin Kamara, this is a really interesting one. So Kamara has Rattler there. It's going to likely keep a top on the defense a little bit more than with Derek Carr, because Derek Carr is a good deep shot taker. Him and Rashid Shaheed have really linked up, and it makes it a little harder for defenses to stop Kamara. Now we're in a situation where it's a Rattler, and we don't truly know what to expect here, but he's going to have a workload. He's on a pace of 400 plus touches, and I would expect that continues this week with Rattler under center. So I'm a little interested, but I don't love going against this Tampa Bay defense, who is fairly stout up front. But they have been susceptible to the running back, dump off. So I think that's where Kamara can really get it done. Just a matter of, does he do it or not? Now, our pivot spots. Bijan Robinson, I think, is interesting. He's down to 6,600, and that's the whole reason I'm there. We have seen him have those games where he can go for 25 plus. He is explosive, so he can break a big run. All he needs to do is, versus a poor rush D, is get a big one. And it's totally possible versus this Carolina defense. I think it's an interesting spot. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons, after a few weeks of not using him that much, tried to, emphasize using him a little bit more. I do have a little bit of a worry, though. The fact that the Falcons could blow out the Panthers. And then last week, Bijan Robinson, he didn't have a single run in the middle of the tackles. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to run the game out that it is with Tyler Algier. And Tyler Algier is getting those end of the game fantasy points instead of Bijan. But I am very interested in Bijan. I just might, if I play Bijan, I might play Deontay Johnson with him type thing. Have some sort of back and forth there instead of just a full-on kind of domination type build. Now, Rico Dowdle, got to talk to him about Detroit. I don't want to face Detroit. Flat out, I don't want to, but got to bring it up because he got 22 touches last week. He's only 5.9K. They relied on him. Could they go back to that? Yes, maybe, but it is a very tough spot. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Next, we got Chuba Hubbard. Hubbard's been great, and he's in a decent spot again, so I don't mind going here again. The other thing is he is involved in the pass game and the rush game, so even if they get down a little bit, he's still going to be around. I'm fine with going some Chuba at low ownership. And then Tajay Spears, I'm a little interested in him as a pivot off a high-owned Pollard. He's getting enough touches to play. It's just, does he get in the end zone or not type thing. And then there's a couple that we got to talk about. Our ownership hasn't adjusted yet, but Bucky Irving. Rachaad White is doubtful, so Bucky Irving is likely going to be the guy. He's probably going to be one of the top 3 highest owned running backs this week. he's in a great spot, and I love playing some Bucky Irving this week if White is out. And I would say he's doubtful. White is doubtful, so it is very likely Irving is going to look really good. Joe Mixon, Patriots rusty hasn't been, great. Mixon is expected to be back, but he just had a huge workload in that game one. Coming back from injury, I wouldn't expect that type of workload, but if he is anywhere near it, he's in a spot where he can absolutely get 2 touchdowns versus the Patriots, and they could just have a big lead versus the Patriots with a rookie quarterback making his first start. I think Mixon's a very interesting play. And then lastly, we got to talk about Antonio Gibson. Ramondre Stevenson's out. Gibson's ownership is going to be up there as well. Another spot where our ownership probably just has not caught up to that news yet. But without Stevenson, it is expected that he is a lead back. But I do have some worries. Last week, he only had 7 targets. He was still a kick returner. Wouldn't be surprised if, he's in the 15 range, and at 5.3K, you don't need to have him. However, if he gets that 20-ish touch area, you'll probably need to have him. So he's worth mentioning there. Now, let's get over to good old FanDuel. High owned Saquon Barkley, Jamar Gibbs, Tony Pollard, Henry. We got Chase Brown in here. Interesting to talk to Chase. Chase has had a couple big games lately, but Zach Moss will be playing again. Zach Moss is still the number one. I think both these running backs you can use in this spot. Neither really jump off the page to me, though. And then J.K. Dobbins. I think we should talk about this Charger spot. Gus Edwards is out. So Dobbins is going to be the one, but I would be very surprised if he got more than 20 touches. So I still think they're going to be careful with this guy because he's been so injured over the years, which makes Kamani Vidal slightly interesting. He's probably getting his first He's going to be active this week, and he'll probably be the change of pace back, take kind of that Gus Edwards, 10 type touch role. At 4K, it's slightly interesting. Devin Singletary is questionable, so it could be another Tyrone Tracy. Sorry, got a little itch in the back of my throat there. All right, now let's get over to matchup tool real quick. David Montgomery is at the very top, which also means Jamar Gibbs is there. Derrick Henry's there. Saquon Barkley, Bijan. Only one we didn't talk about was Najee Harris, who there's not much to talk about. I mean, he's in a good role again. The thing I worry about in this spot is that Jaylen Warren practiced in full. So he could be back, could take away some of that upside from Najee Harris, but just hard for me to want to go there. Now, let's get over to wide receiver. All right, so highest owned wide receivers on the slate. We have way too much Atlanta here and some Carolina sprinkling in here, but Drake London, 25% owned, 2-star alert score. He was just an absolute beast in that last game, 154 and a touchdown. Outside of that, he hasn't been that great. The thing is that Kirk Cousins just hasn't had to throw the ball that many times except for versus Tampa Bay. If they're in another spot where Kirk Cousins are only throwing it, low 30s, I don't expect any of these wide receivers to really be you had to have them. One of them could be, and I think they're all a little interesting. I'm fine playing them a little bit. I like, mini game stacks of this game, but I'm not going to go out of my way to get Drake London. Same goes for Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is underpriced for his role, though, so I would probably side with having a little more Mooney than I would London. Now we get to Jaden Reed. He is the guy that I want in this game the most. He has that 30-plus ability, and he's in a good spot versus Arizona. I'm absolutely fine having a ton of Jaden Reed. Deontay Johnson, I think, is very interesting. He's going to have the targets if they're throwing. So, very much interested in Deontay Johnson. CeeDee Lamb is one of my favorite wide receivers on the week. He is bound to have a breakout game soon. It hasn't happened yet, but versus Detroit, he did have 17 targets for 13 and 227 and a touchdown week 17 of last year. There is a very good chance that Detroit gets up early and then they're throwing a ton the rest of the game. And I think this is probably his best chance this season at, a 15-plus target game. So absolutely interested in some CeeDee Lamb. I don't mind some Tolbert either with that. Ray McLeod, he's underpriced for his role, but again, it's not a spot where I feel like we really need to have him. Calvin Ridley, they had a bye last week. Coaches said they need to get him the ball. For that reason, slightly interested. He is underpriced, but I don't love it. Stephon Diggs, there's no Nico Collins, so that does absolutely help Diggs, but the matchup isn't one that is, that great. Now, Patriots haven't been great versus the wide receiver one, but I have a hard time really wanting to go to Diggs. He's one of those plays this week where if I get some of him, I'm fine with it, but I'm not going to go super hard on Diggs. Jameis Williams, I like that game environment. Definitely going to have some of him. Tolbert has too good of a role as the WR2 in a good game to not have a piece as well. A.J. Brown just absolutely crushes man. Denzel Ward may be out this week, which means he could have man versus a corner that isn't nearly as good as he is. I think it's very interesting, and there is explosive play chances here for sure. Dontavian Wicks, we whiffed on him last week. If Christian Watson is out, I am absolutely back to going to Wicks if we get a chance. He got 7 targets. There's the chance he can do it again. He is explosive. If he's on the field, he gets targets. I am definitely still interested, especially in a game environment like this where we do like the game. Chris Godwin. It's another Lattimore versus Evans game. Evans hasn't done well in those games. If this team has to throw a lot, Chris Godwin is a very interesting play that could go underlooked after a couple games where he really hasn't had to do a ton. Zay Flowers, look, if the Commanders are able to keep up with the Ravens, then I like this spot a lot. In the games that Lamar has really had to throw, 11 targets, 12 targets. If they're throwing, Zay is going to be a big-time beneficiary, and at 6.5K, very much interested in that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, what if Cowboys get up 2 scores and Lions are throwing a little bit more? Amon-Ra has a huge ceiling, and he could definitely torch those secondary pieces if the Cowboys cannot get much of a pass rush, which I think it might be hard for him. And then lastly, I just want to throw out there Noah Brown. He kind of worked as the wide receiver 2 before getting hurt. If he's back in that role, which the news is saying that he is, I think he becomes a very interesting piece in a game that we like at only 3.9K. So definitely interested there. Now, getting over to FanDuel wide receivers. Drake London, Amari Cooper, we haven't talked about. It is a good game environment. The Eagles aren't great versus, wide receiver pieces. It's just, the touches he's getting aren't great. The targets he's getting aren't really hitting home. So I do have some issues with going there if he's higher owned, which it does show right now on FanDuel. So I'm fine going there because he's going to have a couple games that are huge. I just don't necessarily know if this is one of them. CeeDee Lamb, Scary Terry, I think is in a great spot. We've seen a few big games from him. He is getting deep a lot, and that's how the Ravens have really got crushed. So definitely interested in some CeeDee there, or some Scary Terry there. Marvin Harrison, I'm fine to go there, but another spot where I'm not really looking to go it. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. And then if Jair Alexander is in, I'm probably out on him even a little bit more. Then we got the Bengals receivers. There is no Malik Neighbors, so kind of out on that. And without Neighbors, I have a hard time to really wanting to go to Chase or Higgins. I'm fine having a one-off of them here and there, but I just don't see that many paths to really feeling like I need them, and that's my issue there. Wide receiver one matchup tool, Chris Olave at the very top. One thing that I think is interesting about this is that Spencer Rattler did have a sound clip this week saying that he's got to get Olave the ball, and he's just going to pepper him with targets. So if Rattler is playing well, then Olave probably has a decent game. Scary Terry, we love it. Wan'Dale Robinson, my issue with him is just there's just no ceiling. I mean, he scored last week, and you still didn't even need to have him. 13, whatever. Deontay, Amari, both very, very interesting. Now let's get over to tight end. Trey McBride, Dalton Schultz going the high own. Dalton Schultz is without Nico Collins, so maybe a few more targets his way. He's had 6, 5, and 5 the last 3 weeks, and at 4,100, I'm absolutely interested in that. Trey McBride, there's really very few tight ends where you can count on 6+ targets every single week with the chance of double-digit targets. So in a spot versus the Packers, I think you got to consider Trey McBride for sure. Then we go to pivot area. Jake Ferguson is one of my favorite tight ends on the week. He still has the same role that he did last year. He's getting peppered with targets. He gets in the end zone, and that's all you really need. Sam Laporta, look, he had a couple weeks where you had to have him last year. His prices came down, and he is in a good matchup versus the Cowboys where there could be a lot of scoring. So I'm a little interested in Sam Laporta. I think he's going low owned for a very good reason, but I'm fine taking some chances there. And then I got to bring up Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely once again. I brought him up last week, and they were both decent. Andrews had his best game of the year. Likely had 2 touchdowns. Likely actually got me my takedown because he was my run back piece from the Burrow stacks. I also had Flowers in it, but I think both of them are very interesting. It's just game script wise. Like, I am probably going to have Washington pieces if I have Ravens pass catchers, because I think that's what needs to happen for them to have a score that you had to have. And getting over to tight end, Brock Bowers, absolutely can consider him. He keeps doing it week in and week out. And if Jacoby Myers is out, I mean, he is your number one target on the team, not just the number one tight end. So definitely fine playing a little bit of him, even in a matchup that's not great. Jawan Johnson, there's no Taysom Hill again. He had 5 targets last week. Fine going there again. And those tight ends or dump off passes from a rookie quarterback are nice because, you know, it's their little security blanket. So you could expect maybe another target or two to Jawan. Talk about Ferguson, Tucker Kraft. Luke Musgrave is on the IR now, so Kraft is once again playable. His price is way up. Don't love the price, but he's coming off 2 solid weeks. And getting into the team defense tool, Cade Otton we didn't talk about. He's had 4 targets, 9, 8 the last 3 weeks. It's a good matchup for him. I'm fine with a little bit of him, but probably not going super hard on it. And lastly, let's just talk a little defense here. So our highest owned defense, we got Eagles. I think they're in a great spot versus Cleveland. Watson looks terrible. They're giving up sacks. Fine to go there. Broncos versus the Chargers. Only worry here is there's going to be very little passing in that game. So maybe upside is a little capped. Falcons versus Carolina, fine. Bucks versus New Orleans, I think is very, very interesting. They're cheap. And then it's a rookie quarterback. Steelers versus Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders, who are terrible. Colts versus Tennessee, I think, is a little interesting just because we've seen Will Levis make some real dumb moves. And Colts have actually been getting some turnovers. If you look, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 turnovers in 5 games. That's not too bad there. Chargers versus Denver. It's Bo Nix. Chargers defense has been very good. Definitely interested there. Texans versus Derek May. Rookie quarterback making his first start. And then Titans a little bit interested versus Indy. Don't totally love it, but a little bit interested. And then Lions versus Dallas. I think there is a chance the Lions just absolutely roll. And in that game environment, Lions D and a RB could be very, very useful together. All right, guys, that'll do it for us today. I hope you all have a good one. We will be back next week. Good luck. Let's make some money. See you guys later. Peace.